What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got some very exciting new character cards to talk about from Worlds Collide, the new Keyforge expansion. And we need to start off with a card that has been rumoured for, frankly, quite a while. Now, not all actually, but most Keyforge cards have a little bit of what we call flavour text. That is to say, a little bit of text at the bottom which help to illuminate the story of Keyforge. So if we have a look at, say, Irradiated Amber as an example, they poisoned Mars, we must not let them do the same here. Eldest Bear. If we have a look at, for instance, Stampede, the flavour text reads, better to run with the herd than be trampled beneath it. Eldest Bear. And then if we have a look at Mushroom Man, he's a real fun guy if you ever get to know him. Eldest Bear. So frankly, we knew that somewhere along the line we were getting Eldest Bear. Now back in Wave 1, we got Ancient Bear, and we got Way of the Bear, and we got Bear Flute, but we never actually got Eldest Bear. And then Age of Ascension came around and nothing. Well, the good news is that in Worlds Collide, we are finally getting Ancient Bear. Was it worth the wait? I kind of think it might be. I'm kind of a little bit in love with Ancient Bear. I think Ancient Bear is pretty gosh darn good. Now shout out once again to the lovely folks over at dexofkeyforge.com who have been collating all of the Worlds Collide cards from the leak. So, Eldest Bear. Weirdly, it's got 3 traits, Beast Leader and Witch. It is a 5 power, 0 armor creature, so not massively powerful, but more so than usual. And it's got Assault Free. That is to say that when Eldest Bear attacks, you do 3 damage before the attack actually goes through. So if you're sitting there going, oh man, I'd really like to take out this Helper Bot. I use Helper Bot as an example a lot. I love me some Helper Bot. 1 power creature, oh man, he's going to do 1 damage back to me. No, he's not. You've got Assault Free, so any creature that is power free or less will actually be destroyed before the fight even happens, meaning they won't be able to deal any damage to you, because before the fight happens, they gone. And it's also got this lovely skill. While Eldest Bear is in the center of your battle line, it gains before fight, gain 2 amber. Now that's kind of fun now, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? If it's in the center of your battle line, you just get an extra 2 amber when you fight. Except, it's not when you fight, it's before fight. Now, this is incredibly important. Because if Eldest Bear fights anything power 5 or higher, Eldest Bear gets destroyed, because they will do as much damage back to you. Being destroyed is a bad thing. Fight skills only work if you survive the fight. But before fight skills just work. They just come in straight away. So you're fine, ladies and gentlemen. So before the fight even happens, you're getting 2 amber, and you're dealing 3 damage. That's kind of awesome. And we all know that Untamed have been, more so in Call of the Archons and Age of Ascension, but they've been an amber rushing house. You only need to look at cards like Full Moon and Hunting Witch and Dust Pixie that actually go, hang on a second, these are pretty gosh darn good at gaining amber, and now Eldest Bear's there as well. Now, we did see a very similar thing with Captain Valerico, and Captain Valerico is another one of these that has a skill that activates when they're in the middle of the battle line. Captain Valerico, if it's in the center of your battle line, you may play 1 card that is not of the active house. Now, that is just a standard thing, and it's actually easier to use in a way, but remember, this isn't if it's in the center of your battle line at the end of your turn, it is when you fight. So, you don't have to end your turn with Eldest Bear in the center of the battle line. You just need to make sure that you get it in the center, then you fight with it, gain your amber, and you're off. Now, this does actually introduce some fairly awkward decisions at times, because the general rule of Keyforge is you either fight to try and take out a creature, or you reap to gain an amber. And the problem is that Ancient Bear actually is better at gaining amber when it fights than it is when it reaps. But you don't always want to fight. Sometimes the creature opposite you is not one you actually want to fight against, and that gets kind of awkward. You'll survive a bunch of fights here, and remember, you'll still get the amber now, even if you don't survive the fight. But then, of course, you're not there ready to do the fighting next turn. I love Eldest Bear. I think it's brilliant. As for having to be in the centre of your battle line, I don't really care. Like, not in a mean way, just in a, you can manipulate it pretty easily. Like, unless Eldest Bear somehow ends up with 4 creatures on one side, which it really shouldn't, I think you'll be alright. Now, there are another pair of creatures that I want to have a chat about in this video. It's a lovely pair of Logos creatures, Velum and Hyde. And they are very much a pair. Now, as it happens, Velum is actually half as powerful as Hyde. Velum comes in at a 2 power, Hyde comes in as a 4 power. Neither of them actually get any armor, but will be alright. And they are basically the same creature. Okay, fine, I am exaggerating, but they're not too dissimilar. So we start off with Velum then. When you reap, you archive a card, but if you control Hyde, you archive 2 cards instead. When it's destroyed, you archive Hyde from your discard pile, and if you do, you archive Velum. Now, this is not a you may, this is a you must. If Hyde is in your discard pile, you've got to archive Velum. The good news is, if Hyde is not in your discard, you're cool. You can stay around. But archiving 2 cards is brilliant. Stash 2 cards in your archive so that next turn you can have a bigger turn. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're going to go for Shadows next turn. Archive 2 Shadows cards. You've now got 2 fewer cards in your hand, which means at the end of the turn, when you draw up to 6 like normal, you draw 2 more cards. Hopefully 1 or maybe even both of them are Shadows, and then you've got 1 or maybe even 2 more Shadows cards to play on your next turn. Of course, what I'm really thinking here is Dataforge, because Velum archives 2 cards. And when Velum is destroyed, a lot of the time Velum and Hyde will both go to the archive. Even if you reap once here, you're archiving 4 cards. Now, Dataforge becomes incredibly relevant because Dataforge lets you forge a key at plus 10 current cost, minus 1 for every card in your hand. So, build up as big an archive as you can, pick up your archive at the beginning of the turn, maybe even including Dataforge, that would be quite nice, and then make sure that you've got a large enough hand size that the key becomes quite easy to forge in terms of the cost. Love it, absolutely love it. If we move on to Hyde, we see a very similar thing, except instead of archiving, it's drawing. When you reap, you draw a card, but if you control Velum, you draw 2 cards instead. Now, obviously, if you've got both of them out at once, what essentially you're doing is reaping twice, you gain 2 amber. Drawing 2 cards and archiving 2 cards, that's pretty phenomenal. And of course, if you make sure that you reap with Hyde first, you're going to have a greater number of cards from which you can choose when it comes to the whole what do you put into your archive decision. Now, in terms of the destroy trigger here, it's the same kind of deal. You archive Velum from your discard pile, and if you do, you archive Hyde. I.e., what actually happens here is, the first time one of these gets destroyed, the other one stays around, albeit with a weaker skill. Hyde only draws 1, Velum only archives 1. But when the second one gets destroyed, then both of them go to your archive, ready to come out again as a lovely little pair. This is a very cool mechanic. When you've got both of them rolling, it's going to be a thing of absolute beauty. Now, you will notice that Velum is a special rare, so it is very much, you will get them as a pair. So kind of how Time Traveler and Help from Future Self are a pair of cards. They do not come into decks by themselves. That's exactly what we will see here. These will come in as a pair, and then presumably there'll be some decks where they come in as 2 pairs, or maybe even 3 pairs. Though I've never seen a treble time traveler deck. If I remember correctly, they might not be possible. I don't think these are as good as Time Traveler, but I do think they are a very, very strong pair of cards, and frankly, I'm a little bit happy about them. So there we go. I know that thematically Ancient Bear and Velum Hyde don't really have a huge amount in common. I'll be honest with you, I was just hyped. But all these cards super excited me, and I wanted to do a video about them. So I did. But ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about these cards. Oh, shout out to Ollie Hodge, who helped me out with the Ancient Bear stuff, telling me which cards Ancient Bear was previously mentioned on. And I know that Ollie has been waiting for Ancient Bear way more than most people. So, hey Ollie, here's a shout out you were promised. But I'd like to know what the rest of you think about these cards, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk Transformers and any other games that take your fancy. And do please make sure you're checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get weekly bonus podcasts, etc. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.